right, how's it going, Blamers? So welcome back to Blame It on Mel. This next guest grew up Mormon, served an honorable mission. His family name is even on a building at BYU-Idaho. He did everything right, and still, he ended up gay. Today's episode is about what happens when obedience doesn't fix you and how honesty can cost you nearly everything with being gay in the Mormon church. Welcome, Jamison Manwaring, to Blame It on Mel for the second time, because last time we forgot to press record. Not we. My husband forgot to press record.
No problem. I always say the second time is better when it comes to editing and recording because I do a lot of video stuff at work, and even though it's annoying to have to do it a second time, it's usually better. So, and I also know your husband from our missions, so we serve our missions together.
Yes.
And so we'll give him a pass on that, hitting that
Yes.
record button. But it's hit right now. I can see it's blinking red, so I'm ready to go.
Well, and to be fair, I'm staring at the computer the entire time. Granted, I don't have my glasses on, but I should have been able to see that it said the record button instead of stop. So really, I take a little bit of accountability, and the show's called Blame It on Mel, so I guess you really should be blaming it on me anyway.
Yeah, apropos, makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, and I really appreciate you sitting down with me. I know how busy you are. You're so hard to catch up with just to be able to have any sort of free time. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like, all gay guys are good looking, successful, and and so I really appreciate you taking a second time out of your very busy schedule to sit down with me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was fun to talk the first time, and yeah, I got married last year, finally, and we didn't really see it coming.
And he is so good looking.
He does. He kind of makes me look bad, so he keeps me up on my aging.
You're good looking. Yes, you are good looking, and he is beautiful. He's pretty.
He's a beautiful man. And he's keeping me busy because I was kind of used to bachelor life, and he's really brought a lot of other parts of life into our life together. I mean, I had a house here, I had dogs, and I was just busy working most of the time, and so it's been really fun adjusting to our lives together the last almost a year now. When he moved to the U.S., we got married last summer, and then we work together. I have a company here. He actually does video editing for us right now, and so we work together quite a bit. And we're also really busy. We're an apartment developer and investment company, so we're having a very busy year this year. So I'm happy to take some time away from that and kind of go back and talk a bit more about our roots and some of the stuff that with faith and some of the things that I've kind of moved on with my life and am busy in my life, but it's certainly a big part of my life for the first 30 years or so, and I definitely have great feelings to your husband, who we served mission with. I have some of my best friends were other elders I served mission with, and so I have really fond feelings there, but they're also mixed and complicated.
Well, are most of the people that were from your mission, are most of them accepting of you being gay?
The ones who are close to me absolutely are. I'm sure there's some who aren't, but I don't really know about it. I don't know about them. An interesting thing is when this was probably 7 years ago, we had a mission reunion, and I was planning to not go. It was going to be in Las Vegas. I believe it was Las Vegas.
Wait, how do you find out about those, and how did my husband not get invited?
I think I won't drop the names of, but a couple of the elders who I'm close with were the ones planning it. So they reached out to me, and I just kind of jokingly said, I'm probably not going. And then I found out that our mission president, he ended up calling me, and I've stayed close to him, and he's always been very gracious with me, during our mission, And since knowing that I was gay coming out, he's always sent me kind messages. But at the time of our mission reunion, I had a boyfriend, and he said, "We'd love you to come to the mission reunion and bring your boyfriend." His name was Eric at the time, and bring Eric. And I was a little surprised by that, but because he had made that gesture, I decided to go and brought my partner, and it ended up being really nice. It was great to see everybody, and as Brandon, your husband, knows, our mission president is very holds the line in many ways, and so we had a very big, very in-depth Sunday school lesson at our mission reunion. There was prayers and testimony meeting, music, not a lot of socializing, a little bit of socializing, but it was more of a priesthood meeting sort of feel. Not surprising, and because that's who our mission president is, but he was also very, made that reach out to me, and so for everyone who I know on my mission, I have 4 or 5 great mission friends. They've been awesome. They've met my now husband, and so I think I'm very blessed because I know others have not quite had that experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that for you. Um, and I also love that for members of the church. I love that people are figuring out how to kind of be able to bridge the gap of being accepting of people that have different beliefs or different lifestyles. And I think that's not just within the gay community, but that's also like within religion, right? And politics and all of those things. Like I think that we should be able to have differences and still be accepting of one another. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think that it's one thing to have an idea about other people and how that they are and how that they're wrong or maybe immoral, but when it's somebody who you know and who you've had a relationship with and you just never knew that about them, even though that was something I was dealing with the whole time, it changes how you view that, because now you care about that person and you have a relationship with that person. And one thing that we talked about when we discussed before is there are all kinds of LGBT people within that mix, and most religious groups are opposed to the whole LGBT alphabet, the whole group. And there's all kinds of us within that group, and I'm one of them. Before I came out, I used to call myself same-sex attracted. That was kind of a term that I had learned from some other Mormons who were also same-sex attracted. And it became important to me when I came out about 13 years ago that I just called myself gay. I didn't want to call myself same-sex attracted like it was some diagnosis anymore. And I made a point of that, and I just embraced that. And because my whole life I kind of stayed away from that. I had kind of this internalized homophobia about myself, that I didn't want to say that word, because to me that word meant a certain thing. But today I embrace it. I say I love my gay brothers and sisters, and they're very different than me. Some are similar to me, and some are very different. But we do have that all in common, and so I kind of recaptured that word as a gay Mormon, and so I think that's important, that people now have to deal with that, because we are very different from each other, but we also have stuff in common, and I think the stuff in common is what is important, to keep us together as a people and connected.
But it took you a long time to be able to embrace that, right? I mean, that's something that came with time.
A lot of time. One of my regrets is that I was 32 when I came out. I wish I had been 22 or even younger,
Why
because I
why
knew
do
it.
you think it took you so long?
Well, as a teenager, I lived in a world where I only understood that this was not something that was part of me. It was a part and separate from me, and I needed to change it. I needed to fix it. And so I saw myself as I'm just like my brothers and my friends who are straight and they want to be with women, and I got this other thing going on that I'll figure that out at some point. And that was really through my teens and my 20s, but it brought a lot of turmoil to me, because even though some people say, you know what, I don't care if you're gay or who you sleep with or whatever. We don't need to talk about that. I just want to talk to you and we can ignore that. But if you think about how big a part of a person's identity that is, if you're a straight married couple, you think about yourself with your partner a lot, your husband, your family. So it's not just some little thing on the side. It's not like it's some hobby that somebody does on the weekend. It's an integral part of how you see the world, how you see yourself in the world. And if you're gay, you grow up not, in my case, I never saw folks who were happy, healthy, successful gay people. I didn't even know that existed. And so I had just heard negative things about gay people. I heard that they're lonely. I heard that they're dying. I heard that they were deviants. And why would I ever want that? So I did everything I could to put that in the back of my mind, but it was always there. It was part of my existence. It was just there. You wake up and that's pretty clear. So for people that say, yeah, we don't need to talk about if you're gay or whatever, I don't need to know who you sleep with. That's not what it's about. It's about understanding that we are all very different, and this is an integral part of a gay person's reality, even at a young age.
Yeah, and I think that everybody struggles with that. Everybody that is gay or wanting to be trans or whatever that is. I'm not very politically like correct with a lot of this stuff because I don't live in an area where there is a lot of diversity. Um, so please bear with me, and if I say something wrong or inappropriate, correct me so I can
I'm
learn.
not that politically correct either, so I'll do the best I can. I try, but I'm not great either.
Yeah, but also like that's all what it's all about is like learning from each other and being able to understand each other. And I mean, I love that. That's how we grow. But but I just think like that has to be something that's so hard as a, kind of like teenager cuz like when did you start having those kind of like those desires where you were like, "Oh, like maybe I like boys."
Yeah, and it started at a very young age. I remember, I think it was third or fourth grade, being in a planetarium on a school field trip, and there was this guy. I even don't remember his name. This boy, and I just always thought he was cute. And in the planetarium, like and we're, I don't know, what is that, 10 years old. He bit my arm because I put my arm on the chair, and he was sitting behind me, and he bit it, and 9, 10-year-old thing. And I just remember liking that. And I didn't come up with that, right? But as I look back I remember that, and it was kind of felt flirty. It felt fun. It was like, and I was third or fourth grade, and then from then on, I actually had a great childhood. I always had good friends. I was active playing sports. I felt love at home, especially from my mom. My dad was providing, and I felt love from my dad, and church and my community. So it was just in the back of my mind. Like, I just didn't have any problem with it. I think the big thing that happened was when I turned 12 and I got into priesthood from primary. I remember getting the Strength of Youth pamphlet.
Describe what that is, because a lot of people are not Mormon that are listeners, and so maybe describe what that is.
Yeah, it's given to you when you're kind of starting puberty, and they know you're going to be starting exploring your body, and you're going to start figuring different things out, kind of like going from childhood to young manhood. And so they give you this pamphlet, and it's a pretty direct, clear pamphlet about what you should or shouldn't do when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to law of chastity. And I remember when I got it, I started flipping through it, and I knew what I was looking for. I was looking for what they were going to say about what I had heard as homosexuality. So I started flipping through it. When it came to the law of chastity and girls and masturbation, all this stuff, I was fine, no problems there. But I got to the one page that talked about homosexuality, and it was just very direct. That it was brief, but it just said, "This is wrong. People who live this way will not be happy. You'll not be able to be close to God, and it's immoral." And so I was like, well, none of that's me. I'm not doing any of that. So this is here for me, but I'm going to follow this. So it says it's wrong. So let's go. Now I know. And then a short time thereafter, I was in my first priesthood meeting. So you're 12 years old, right, as a young deacon. And I remember one of the talks in the priesthood meeting talked about this same topic about sexual purity. And for a few seconds, he talked about homosexuality and basically said the same message, that it's wrong, that you cannot be a happy person, it's a deviant lifestyle, all these things. And I remember sitting there and just feeling in that priesthood meeting, feeling like everyone knew, which I don't think they did, but I felt like
I promise you that nobody knew, because when you came out, everybody on your mission, like at least all of the people that my husband knew, they were all shocked.
Yeah, I did a really good job of keeping that a secret.
You wore one heck of a mask.
Yes. And at that priesthood meeting, I was dating a girl, 12 or 13, so dating, going out. Her brother and their family was a row or two ahead of me. And I felt this incredible shame that this was me that they were talking about. And here I'm dating their sister, and if they only knew. And, now just thinking about that kind of touches me for little 12-year-old me, in that meeting. And the pressure that I felt because I was dating her. I was, we were the couple of the ward.
At 12? This was...
Yeah, going
Wow.
out, going out. So I just knew that everything that I had heard, that was not me. So I was just barreling forward, following the things that I should follow, and had the faith it would work out.
Did you have a plan, like how you were going to make those things go away, those thoughts?
Yeah, my plan was I'm busy. I'm going to do everything the right way. And it's a part of your life, but it's not the only thing in your life. So I just ignored it and did other things. And I had girlfriends all the time and had good relationships with them, still friends with many of them till this day. And it really hit a breaking point my freshman and sophomore year, when those feelings really came out, because my friends were starting to be really interested in girls, and I was not, but I had to pretend I was.
Really? Like if they were talking about it, you had to be like, oh yeah, she's so hot.
Oh yeah. Well, at the time I was the ladies' man, so I
I
played that
have
off
no
really.
doubt. I'm sure you were like blonde, blue-eyed. You had that perfect little haircut. You
Always
were
had a
Peter,
girlfriend. Yeah.
yes, Peter
I
Priesthood, did
I remember
everything
having one
right.
girlfriend, and I didn't talk to her for like a year, but I had a girlfriend. It's the perfect situation for me. Um, uh, and then there were a few of those people in my grade who I was very attracted to. I was like, wow. And just having to deal with that. So all of a sudden, this thing that was just back there and I knew just became more and more prevalent, just like it is for a straight young man when they go through puberty. Now those things they're not supposed to do become even more difficult because biologically, our bodies are telling us this is the phase of life that we're in. So my high school was tough. Tough.
Because you grew up in Idaho Falls, right?
Right.
And so that is a very dominant Mormon community. You
Yeah.
also are from a family where your last name is pretty prevalent within the Mormon church. You've got ancestors that wrote hymns that are in the hymn book, right?
Yeah.
Your name is on that building, the MC, which is where everybody hangs out. I hung out when I was there, like,
The
because
Manwaring
when I heard
Center.
your last name, I was like, that sounds so familiar. Because you don't call it the Manwaring Center, you call it the MC. But I
Ah,
remember seeing it all spelled out, and I was like, why do I know that name? And then I looked it up, and I was like, that's that, so that had to have been a lot of pressure on you, because like all of your family, weren't you the youngest in the birth order? So you're
yeah.
coming behind all of these very righteous siblings.
Yeah, youngest of eight, and there is some correlation actually with having older brothers. So I have four older brothers, and there's some correlation biologically um, to gay men who have older brothers, and there is some um, basis for as the mom has additional boy babies, they produce more and more estrogen, or her body produces different levels of estrogen in utero, and that might have an impact as to why that there's that correlation. It's fairly high correlation. I didn't know this until much later, but it's very common.
How did you learn that?
I remember learning about it in a college sex ed class. Tom Christofferson, who's a friend of mine, his oldest brother's Todd Christofferson in the First Presidency, and Tom has four older brothers, and he's gay as the fifth youngest brother. And I noticed it as I started meeting men too. It's not uncommon. Now that doesn't mean it's that in all cases, but there is some correlation, definitely heavy correlation to that. And yeah, the hypothesis is as the mom has more male babies, her body produces more estrogen on each one, and that could be part of why there's more gay kids when you have older brothers. That was a big part of my identity, was being a Mormon, being a Manwaring, and I, even to this day, I want to. That matters to me. I want, especially the Manwaring side. Obviously, I came out, which was an adjustment for my family, um, and but I still really identify with my heritage, my Mormon heritage, and I love reading their stories. I love hearing what they did, where they followed the prophet and they came across the plains. And so for me, I've tried to separate my heritage as a Mormon versus my faith and my belief, because it's not possible for me to follow the religion and be happy. And that's what I came to. I could stay in the religion as a celibate man, or I could have married a woman. And I have many friends who are same-sex attracted, who chose to marry women, and I didn't feel right about either of those paths. And so, for me to be happy and to be fulfilled and to live my full existence here on earth, it became really clear that I could not stay as an active member of the church.
But you tried really hard.
I tried really hard, yeah. So when I came, I basically made a deal with God, and we all do that from time to time. But before I went on my mission, I did come out to my bishop before I left on my mission. We had a discussion
Is that
about
the
it.
first person that you ever came out to?
First person I ever told was a bishop, and they probably he could have used a little bit more training with his response looking back.
But what did you say to him? Because I'm sure you weren't like, I'm gay, because I'm sure you didn't really think that you were gay at this point, right? You just thought that this was your cross to bear in a way, and that you were going to be extra obedient. Like if you can kind of, in a sense, pray this away.
Yeah, I told him I wanted to go on a mission. I told him I wanted to do the right thing. I told him I wanted to have a family. And at that point, all of those things, including a family and a wife, was still going to happen. And that this had been some stuff that was going on. But that I felt that I needed to come clean. That if I was going to go serve a mission, which is also a big part of my family heritage, my grandparents went on 3 missions as adult couples. I always planned to do that. But if I was going to do that, I needed to come clean and have this conversation. And then it would put it to bed, because I talked with my bishop and I would be able to just move forward now. And that was totally my plan. And the conversation was kind of weird. He didn't really know how to handle it. He ended up bringing in as my state president. I didn't have direct meetings with my state president and talk about it, but I think he had some conversations with him. And that state president was very gentle and I think more understanding, and had no problems recommending me to go on a mission, because I think he knew that I was really determined and that I just had this little thing going on, and I was determined to work through it. And so it was a big relief when they said, I'm happy to recommend you, and I could go back and tell my family, who I was about 6 months late going on a mission. I didn't tell them why. They just knew that there was a little bit of delay, and they were surprised. And I was very relieved when they said, hey, no problem, we totally will recommend you. And I ended up going.
What do you think your family thought? Like, did they think that maybe you had kind of messed up with a girl or something?
Probably. And I was fine with that. That's totally
That
totally
helps your
cool.
cause. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has that. But what I was really dealing with, as long as they didn't know about that, then I'm good.
So this entire time, you were truly thinking you can get rid of these thoughts. Like, it's going to go away.
100%. Yeah. And I would just keep on the path. Growing up in that environment, I didn't see any other path. And I've always believed in YOLO. You only live once.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna live the best life that I can. I feel like my life is a gift, and I want to use this time the best I can. And the only path that I saw was the Mormon path. And so I was going to make sure to do that. And so at that point, I had no doubts that this would go away and I would be able to fulfill that path. I remember when I went through the temple, after I went through, I was there every day on my own, and I loved it. I loved the
this
temple.
before you went,
Before my mission?
before your mission? Okay. And before you went to the MTC, is there like kind of
Yeah.
some time in between there?
I ended up having like 2 or 3 months there, and I would go there every day, and I
Is
got
that
to know
normal?
some of the old people who were there. I don't think it's very normal. My family, I don't think, they say, oh, you're going a lot. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'll just go every day. And they're like, well. But that maybe for me, that was normal, because I do tend to go kind of all in on stuff. And I've always been kind of spiritual. I enjoy my time by myself. And the temple was perfect because you're there. It's a very one-on-one experience. There's no talking. you can go sit in the celestial room and it's beautiful and people are dressed in white, and it was just a time that I felt was with God, communing with myself and with God.
Did you ever ask God to make it go away?
Not yet, because I needed to still fulfill my end of the bargain, because
Which was what?
which was go on the mission, go to the temple, and go all in.
So you felt as though if you did this checklist and you did what was expected of you and you did it 100%, you did it the best, better than anybody could do it, that then you could ask.
And I didn't even need to ask because that was the promise. So I knew this was wrong, and that's what I understood. So as long as I did my part, the promise was I would be able to fulfill the rest of what I needed to do to live a great life and have a family.
And you felt like it was wrong because of reading the For Strength of Youth pamphlet. And I'm sure that you had the family proclamation hung on your wall in your home.
Yeah, there was no ambiguity from everything that I had learned that it was wrong. I had never heard a conversation from anyone, any adult person, that said it wasn't wrong. Not one that said, well, but we have this one friend and they're really great people. Nothing. It was just black and white. I actually remember I had a little party in my house, and I was a pretty good kid, but there was one time my parents were out of town, and I had people over to my house, maybe 20, 30 people. My parents didn't know about it.
Well, yeah, you were the
And,
youngest, so you had no sibling that was going to narc on you
yeah,
at all.
yeah, exactly. I had a great, but my parents were also smart after 8 kids. So they knew what to watch for when they came home. But I remember a big group of people. This was probably ninth grade or sophomore year. And we started talking about gay people. And me and my friends were so, clear that not only were gay people wrong, but they were also weird. And I mean, looking back on it, I was right along with those guys. And thankfully, most of those friends have totally done a 180. But this was a different time, and we didn't know what we were talking about.
But this is also the time, like, remember, we didn't have Google then. We
Yeah.
didn't really have the internet. You weren't able to see other people even through social media and see if any of these things are possible, right? Or see how, like you're talking about, because even though you live where
Absolutely.
you live, you had no access to even see what that would look like.
And we were very well trained that what is right and what is wrong, and it's very easy to do that in an insular, homogenous town. But at this get together, I had a couple of friends who were more liberal, and I remember it was a couple of girls, and we were saying some things, and one of the girls said something like, "You guys shouldn't say that. My parents are friends with someone, and they're great people." And they really had a lot of courage to say that in that environment. But it was really, for me, I'm glad they said that because I was like, oh, there is some other people that see this a little different, even here in my town. And I actually remember rebutting them and said, well, in the Bible, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And everyone laughed, and I kind of won the argument.
Can
But
you
I mean,
imagine?
I was the one on the argument. My nickname was Mormon at that time. So my last name is very tied to Mormonism, and my nickname was Mormon. So I had to come in with that last argument. And a little side note here: whoever the most boisterous person is about homosexuality and gay people, your spidey sense should go up a little bit there. That person is probably the most likely person to be gay and closeted, and that was me.
Did you ever reach out to that girl later?
I remember coming out, and she sent me a great message. It's two girls, and one was a Jewish girl, and both of those girls have gone on and had great lives, but I got really nice messages from both of them, and they were probably both going, "We should have known. We should have known it was going to be Mormon that was gay."
So you go on a mission. So tell me about that, right?
I loved the mission. I loved it in many ways. I love the area that we were in because it's beautiful and the people there are very, very kind. No, not many of them joined the church, but
Did your older brothers also kind of stay stateside?
no, I had one that went to the Philippines, and then one went to the UK, and then one went to Chicago.
And you went to Nova Scotia, right?
Yeah, went to Nova Scotia. And I remember reading a thing when we got there that the average missionary baptizes two people on their whole mission, so one per. And they had a little plaque, and they had a plaque about a missionary who baptized 10 people on his 2 years. I mean, I'm a little competitive too, especially with stuff like this. I was like,
Challenge
oh,
accepted.
I got that. I'm gonna beat that. And you're not supposed to count how many people you baptize.
Really?
No, that's that. Even though it's a little competitive internally, you're not supposed to be about that, and it shouldn't be, right? If you're baptized,
Yeah. Well, why do they have it on a plaque then?
well, that's true. But I will just say I got very lucky. I had really good companions, and we baptized a lot of people on our mission. It wasn't.
How
I
many
had
people
something to
did
do
you
with
count?
that,
Was it
and
more
other
than
people
10?
had something to do with it. I baptized more like 25 people,
So you set a record.
and
Not only did you set a record, but you freaking doubled it.
and did 5 weddings because in Canada one of the big things is this common law marriage. People are living together for a long time, and after like 5 years, it's common law, but the church won't let them get baptized unless they get married. So my mission pictures are full of people getting married, 5 weddings, about 25 people got baptized, and it was so that was great. I had great companions. I was all in. I love studying. I love having 2 or 3 hours in the morning to study, and then I'm very mission oriented. Tell me what to do. I'm gonna go out and do it. Love that. Didn't have to worry about money. Didn't have to worry about dating. Don't have to worry about anything like that. And then you have this great community and brotherhood. When I got to the end of my mission, I did not want to go home, and I ended up extending 6 weeks because I'm like, I knew what was facing me when I went home, and I'd have to go back to regular life, and I did not want to do it.
Well, what was facing you?
Well, I knew I found maybe the first 6 months, the gay part was kind of I suppressed it pretty well. But I remember getting into a new district and meeting this one elder, and I was like, this guy is so handsome, and here I'm in the same district as him. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I thought that was supposed to go away.
So you're hoping, like you're feeling like it's gone. Like your plan worked. You made it. You're on a mission. You're working really hard. You're doing all these baptisms, and you feel like you've suppressed it, right? And then
It
this
was
Greek
still,
god comes out of nowhere, and you're like, oh no.
and it was just still there. And I was like, wait a second, why would that still be there? I'm all in here. And anyone around me knew I was all in, too all in, probably.
Well, yeah, and you were, what's it called? Like you were in charge, right, of all the missionaries in your area.
Well, yeah, AP. So about half of my mission, I was the assistant to the president. In the back half, last 11 months of my mission. And so everyone just assumed I'm, on a fast track to, be a bishop later in my life and all of those things.
A bishop, you were probably going to be an apostle.
That's probably what everyone there thought, and I think
That's what my husband thought. He's like, that's when I remember when
I don't know about apostle.
when your YouTube video came out and somebody had sent it to him, and I remember we were sitting there watching it, and he was just like, you don't understand. Like, this is our AP. Like, of all the people, he would be the last one that I ever would have thought would be gay because he is like, he's like, I would think that he's going to be a general authority.
Well, and I think that's where it comes down to where, for me, I had proven to myself in my life experience that this was not a choice. And I had heard that this was a choice. So as long as you just do what you're supposed to do, this is going to go away. And that's kind of the first question that people need to grapple with, whether you're in the church or out of the church, is is this person really choosing this? And I think the people in my life were pretty clear that if I had had any other way, I would have chosen it. I never chose it. It was just always there for whatever reason. And I don't even know why it's there. I can't give you that answer today. But what's more important is I knew that it was there. And so do I live a life where I don't like myself? Do I live a life where I'm constantly fighting myself? I did for my teens and then into my 20s. I didn't like myself and I didn't like my existence. But actually, at the same time, I was okay with it. I knew everyone else didn't like it. I knew that the environment that I was in didn't like it. But I had enough sense to know that I didn't pick it. It was just there. So here I am in my mission, working hard, doing everything right, and it's still there. So I just kept putting my head down. I doubled down. I was enjoying it anyway, and I loved the mission experience. But I knew that when it came over, and I had to go back home, I was going to enter another phase of a difficult situation.
Well, because, and I'm guessing it was the same for you because my husband said that the mission president, when he was ready to go home, he said, okay, now your next step is to go home and find a, amazing young woman young lady to get married to. That's your next step. It was not like go back and go to school. It was, okay, you need to go back and you need to find somebody to marry. So were you also told that?
In fairness to my mission president, I think there was a bit more nuance because he knew what I was dealing with.
You also confided in him then. So was he the second person then that you had told?
Yep. And but I was telling him, no, I'm going to get married. So don't worry about me. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get married. I'm going to get a calling. I'm going to go get a list of people who need to be reactivated. I'm going to go. And I did all of that.
Even though you knew that this is like, yeah, it's still in the back of your mind. It hasn't gone away.
And you also, like, I assumed I was still attracted to women and that I still wanted to be with a woman. This was just a weird thing going on the side.
So you thought that you were attracted to men and women.
Yes, I thought so.
Okay.
I
So you just,
assumed so because that's what everyone told me I should
yeah.
be.
So you, and may correct me if I'm wrong. So did you feel like you could go back, you could get married and live with a woman, and then you would just have those thoughts, but you'd be able to kind of suppress them, but that you would still be able to have that joy and love for a female?
That's exactly right. And that's what I had heard. And I dug into any church guidance in this topic, and that's basically what it was given. Certainly on my mission I did, and then when I came home from my mission, I dug into it even more. There's this group called Evergreen that was started in the 80s, and it was basically for same-sex attracted Mormons to get support, literature. They had a general authority on their board at one point, and I dove into that group, reading, understanding, and then there was another group right after that called North Star that was even a bit more nuanced in its approach, because Evergreen was, hey, go to therapy and change. North Star was a bit more, we don't know if you can change, but it doesn't matter, you need to live the gospel. So those groups, when I came home from my mission, I did a bunch of research around them. I got involved in them. There were also a couple of books that were published by Deseret book that I read about the topic, and I basically read everything I could. And then went and I started dating like you wouldn't believe. I remember when I was dating, I lived next to an uncle, and I would bring different girls home, every week and tell them about them. Not home, but I would go on dates with different girls. And after about 6 months, he said, you might need to just slow it down a little bit. It seems like you're really being aggressive about this. And I guess he didn't know why I was being so aggressive, because I was determined to find the right woman. If I found the right one, then it would all work.
So were you told that, or is that just what you believed?
I think it's implied. Basically, at the time, so this is the early 2000s, at the time, bishops and priesthood leaders would say to someone like me, go date, go try it out, stay away from acting on this in any way, and God will come in and do the rest. And that's what I did.
So when you went home, you were still with your bishop, working with your bishop, trying to get counsel of how to get through this.
It was about a year and a half. I was home, before I told the bishop about it, the rest of the time I was just reading and doing that, and that was the counsel given by leaders of the church in Ensign articles and different things. Anything that had anything to do with the topic, I found and read it, and that was basically the guidance. I also knew that these groups, these communities that were mostly based in Salt Lake, that's what a lot of the men in these communities were married to women. They were trying to work through their feelings, their same-sex attraction in therapy, and in many cases, they were saying that they were able to change, that those feelings went away as they got married. So that's what I believed kind of in my early 20s that was possible for me.
Did you feel like it was harder to go to these groups you're going knowing that all of these people all are like you, they have these homosexual thoughts, right? And so wouldn't that make it harder for you to go to be like, I don't like, I don't know. I guess maybe it would be different because you're like being attracted to somebody that you know is attracted to men is probably, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you is like, is that a different situation than being with a big group of men that you know all are heterosexual?
I didn't go to any of these groups for a couple of years because I was so scared to go. So I was just looking online at the stuff that they posted online, and they realized that a lot of people don't want to they want it to be confidential, and so for the first few years I was very confidential with it. I ended up going to a therapist who, I was living in Arizona at the time, and that was a big step for me to actually go meet with someone who was not a bishop. And he basically had a practice where he was helping men change their sexual orientations. It's called conversion therapy.
Isn't that kind of what they call these groups as well, as like conversion therapists, therapy groups?
Yeah, yeah. They're kind of therapy led, and I started reading their materials and going to therapy on a regular basis. It wasn't cheap. It was $300 or $400 an hour, and I was paying for it out of pocket because I didn't want to tell anyone about it. But I was going to that. And I thought that I had really found the last tool that I needed to be able to get over this. Because this therapist, not only was he the therapist, but he was also same-sex attracted himself, and he had overcome it and was now married and had children. His name's Floyd Godfrey. And he had written a book under someone else's name because he was trying to protect his identity. And he invited me and said, you need to get involved in my practice. You can meet these other men who are going through it. And about 2 months after that, I met him. I ended up meeting a girl, and I was like, I think this is probably the girl. And we started dating. We got engaged really quickly. I told her about my same-sex attraction before we got engaged. She seemed okay with it. She didn't seem like it was a big concern for her. I also brought her to meet him in a therapy session. And I think at that point she got a little freaked out. I saw for the first time her reaction to it when it wasn't just talking with me, but now talking to this guy. And then things started to kind of unravel about how great this would work and that this would solve everything. But that's what I did. And we ended up ending our relationship. And about 6 months after that, I decided I think this guy's selling snake oil. I don't think that this works. I think that and this was a lot to do with my experience, and then I also talked to a lot of the men who were in these groups. They basically told me, look, I'm married. These men were married. The therapy helps me get through my wedding, my marriage, but I'm not really into my wife. I would rather be with a man. And if I could go back and be in your shoes and be single, I'd probably do it different.
Somebody within the group told you that?
Yeah, multiple
Are you
men.
kind of glad that they told you that though?
Oh yeah, I'm
Because
so glad. I'm still friends with them on
yeah,
social media.
because not only are you kind of like, I don't want to say you're ruining your life by living a lie, but I mean, you're taking so much joy away. And then not just would you be ruining your life, but you would also be really impacting, an innocent girl that, like 10, 20 years down the road, having to realize like her husband's really not that into her. That seems like that would be worse than just being what you are.
And it started to really wear on me when multiple girls would be head over heels for me, and I was just like, eh. um, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep breaking girls' hearts?
Yeah, you were breaking hearts for sure.
And why am I doing this? And but I had to test it out. I'm one of those that I have to go out and try it because this is what I was told. This is what I believe. So I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do but then reality comes in and, reality hits you hard, bro. With that, it's like reality is what really matters. And yeah, I was really appreciative of these older men. They were a generation ahead of me, maybe 10, 15 years ahead. And they just said, a couple of them just honestly messaged me and said, because I asked them, I said, so it really goes away? That's what's happening? And they just said, I remember one guy in particular, he just said, it hasn't gone away at all. And I'm staying involved because it's helpful. I love my wife. I don't want to break her heart. And that's why I'm here. And several of those men have since come out. They've left their wife later on, once their kids were grown. And for me, I feel so lucky that I was able to make a decision with that knowledge because they were told something else and then they moved forward with it.
Yeah, you would have been where they are if they hadn't told you. Like, how grateful of a gift was that for them to give you that honesty?
And then for me, if after I have that information, I'm not going to make that same mistake. How much of an idiot would I be to do the same mistake that they did? And I had seen it in my life already with beautiful, great, attractive women who would have been perfect partners for me, and I'm just not interested. So that's what happened in my early 20s. And then the other thing you have to remember is, as a Mormon, my first set of friends when I came home from my mission, we had a house together. We all shared a house, different, had our own rooms. And then 6 months later, one of those friends got married. And then 3 months later, another friend got married. After a year and a half, my house was empty, and I had to get more people. And after going 3 or 4 cycles of all my friends getting married, here I am, 27.
Were you in college or what did you?
I had started a company and was also in school at the same time. And I was on my third set of friends, close friends, and they had just got engaged and were getting married. And here I am going, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I felt like metaphorically, I was, my nose was up against a wall and I'm just standing there not doing anything, just trying to walk and not moving. And my parents had just left on a mission, and 27, 28, they had just left on a mission, and that was a bit of a relief because now they're kind of away. And my two closest friends were in serious relationships and we had a house together. And I just hit a breaking point. I don't know. One of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption. I can watch it every year and get a whole different meaning out of it. But one of the things it says there is Red says, every man has his breaking point. And I had hit my breaking point. So all of this buildup of who I am, as with my last name, with my nickname, with my mission experience, I had been an elders quorum president, war mission leader, everything else since I had been home for my mission. All of that built up, and I was like, this ain't working anymore. I'm gonna have to go a different path. And I didn't even know what that path was because I had only looked at what my options were within the church. And so I had to find a whole new path. And that was really hard as well, to make that transition. But that's where I was, and I finally hit my breaking point. And I was like, I'm going a different way.
And what did you do? What was your first step?
My first step was I needed to date a man.
And you're in Arizona at the time?
Yeah. And
So
I
how did
needed to
that
see.
go? How did you, like, I mean, this has got to be new for you. You're like, okay, well, I know how to find these Mormon girls. I can just go to church and find them there, right? Like, no problem. But like, how do you do that? How do you find that?
Well, and this is something I think a lot of straight people take for granted. If you're gay and you want to date and meet people, it's very difficult to find people to date. So it's like people like me who most people don't think I'm gay. They would have no idea. I've never been hit on by a guy in person unless I'm, at a gay event. But out in public, they have no idea. And a lot of gay people are like that also. So, so the best way to date, at least at the time, and I still think it's probably the case, is online because you're able to find people who are gay.
So is that what you did? That was your first step then?
Yep, and it's also kind of safe because you can have some conversations, and I can just say, in a very quick amount of time, 2 or 3 months, I've met great people, and I was like, this is amazing. They're attractive, they're cute, they're further along than me in their coming out process. And it was like they call this, I've heard people call this the gay bounce, after being closeted so long and then you come out. And then it's like you kind of go into this kid in the candy store thing, and everything is just, this whole world has opened up. And I won't say I made every correct decision in that period because I had a lot of pent up energy and enthusiasm for this new world.
Did you have a hoe phase? Is that what you're trying to say? Well,
I
because are you
won't say that because
still,
maybe my mom will hear this, but I did.
it's implied. It's implied. So, okay,
And
so
it's like it was so fun, and I'm like, I get to finally date and like people. I'm taking on dates,
yes, like
and it was
for the
awesome.
first
I
time
loved it.
have that those butterflies, right? You probably had never had those feelings before where you're just like, I am really excited to see this person.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I didn't know what I was missing, and I don't say that. I'm someone who I never drank, did drugs, smoked, did anything, and to this day I can do all those things now, and I don't need to do all of that because I'm just kind of myself. I don't feel like I need to try everything to know what I'm missing. So just to put that out there. But when it came to this for me as a person and as someone who likes to be connected to people and believes in love and believes in dating, I had suppressed this for so long. So when I actually opened myself up and I said, okay, I'm gonna actually date people I want to date, it was amazing. I loved it. I also soon thereafter I told my bishop and I told my who I loved at the time. I said we need to talk, and I told him that I was dating and that I planned to date.
What do you mean who you loved at the time? Who?
That bishop is probably my favorite bishop of all time, and someone who I still see as a mentor and the type of man that I want to be. And I remember he said, okay, I'll need your temple recommend, and I handed it to him, and I just knew I had to hand it to him. It was like I was trading one thing for another, and I was happy to hand it to him. And I knew everything that was in that temple recommend. I liked it. I love the temple. It's fine with it. But I had to make a choice.
You're the only person that I know that says that. I freaking hated it. I felt weird. I was like, I am in a cult. Like, get me out of here.
Yeah, I'm weird. I loved it. I'd love to go to the temple and to be able to just hang out.
Wearing that baker hat?
Yeah, I even like the hat. And it meant a lot to me. But I had to make the choice, and I handed it to him, and he was very understanding. He knew what I was making that choice of, and I appreciated that.
He knew how hard that you tried to change it. Like, you tried for years to be something else. I mean, there's nothing more that you could have been. You could not have been more obedient, more righteous. There is nothing more that you could have done. So I don't know if anybody within the church could even make a judgment knowing that, like, you didn't try to be gay. You tried to not be gay for years. You were willing to honestly kind of trade your own happiness and your own joy for righteousness.
Yeah, I was willing to too at one point. At one point, I said, I remember reading Matthew. I read the whole Bible in high school, cover to cover, Old Testament, everything, because I was on a search, and I remember coming across where Jesus says, "If your right eye offend thee, pluck it out. If your right arm offend thee, cut it off." And I remember going, "You can take it. I'm all in on this life's temporary. You can take it. I'm good." And he knows that's how I felt, and he never took it. He never took my right arm. He never took my gayness. He could, if he wanted to, could he take it? Absolutely. I believe God could take it, and he never did. And that was what helped me as I came to that clarity. Of course he could take it, and he's not. So I need to own it. It's mine. He gave it to me, and he could take it all along, and he's not, even though I've done my whole part. And that's when you have to start, and I had to start loving what God gave me, including being gay. And now, as a married man to another man at this stage of my life, I love my life, and I love it. I love what God has given me, and my life is very different than what it would be otherwise, and I'm embracing it, and I'm loving it, and that's that took a long time to get there, but I'm not disputing what God has done in my life. I'm just accepting it.
Do you think that you're going to go to hell?
I do not think I'm going to go to hell. No, I don't. I think that, and even in the Mormon context, I'm not sure what my family thinks. I'm not sure what my parents think, but I'm just grateful for where I am today. I'm grateful at my wedding that both of my parents came.
That had to have been a really difficult thing.
it ended up not being that difficult for them, but I think they had enough time to get ready. But there was a time where I said, if I ever actually become gay, I'm just gonna have to move away and
Because
and
you
do my
were,
own thing
because why?
because I didn't see any way that my friends and my family would ever accept that. And it was in my head because when I actually came out to them, all I felt was love and acceptance. Even though there's certainly my parents, it took them a little bit longer to get there. My mom, in particular, she grew up in a small farm town in Idaho. Has lived there her whole life, except for a few missions that they've gone on. The church still means the world to her and to my dad. But and I don't want to change that. I want it to be what it is for them. But we've figured out a way for her to know that for me, I need something else. So it's been she's been a big supporter of me in my marriage, and I think she probably likes my husband as much as she likes me.
That's a that's a huge gift.
Yeah, and I never expected that, but I'm very happy with how that's all worked out.
Was that your biggest fear about when you came out, or I guess before you came out? Was that your biggest fear? Was that you were going to lose your family's love?
Yeah, I thought. So I have 27 nieces and nephews, and my family's always meant almost everything to me. I have good friends too, but my family means everything. And I always, the fear is it will either change, either they won't accept it or it will change things dramatically. And it actually did change things dramatically in that they had to change how they view gay people. And I've also learned on my side, as someone who's not a practicing Mormon anymore, that I'm going to respect their faith and their life, and we're just going to be different. So what it leaves us with is we just have to love each other, because we don't talk about the church anymore. If you take that off the table, for some people, they don't know what to talk about. We can't talk about the church, and they don't know what to do, and now what? So you take that off the table, and then I don't push LGBT agenda every time I go to their dinner table either, and say, well, you guys need to do this, and you guys do this, and you voted for who? They've come over a little ways, so I need to come over a little ways if we want to have a relationship, and that's what's required on both sides. And then the only thing that we have is we love each other and we care about each other. And so that's the place we got to get to. And that's been kind of the miracle as I've come out, is that I know that my family loves me, they want the best for me, and it's also helped me to be more patient with them, that they're going to do the best they can with their life and with what they know, so that we can just get to love. Because, the old Beatles song, all we need is love.
Yeah, I agree. So did you still go to the church, the Mormon church, after you started dating men? This was because you started dating men for a while before you came out, right? How many years?
Yeah, I dated men kind of, and women for a few years at the same time for about
You
3 or 4 years.
You did.
I dated one girl. And this is kind of common. So I had started dating men. I got really into this one guy when the relationship ended after 3 or 4 months. I was like, oh, I'm probably not gay actually. I'm gonna go try this straight thing again. This is not uncommon. Because I had dated guys for maybe 6 months. It didn't work out, and I'm like, oh, this feels awful. I'm gonna go. This must just be, not right.
Are you still kind of living like the gospel? Are you living the law of chastity? Like at this point, are you still able to kind of be like an active member of the church?
I was involved in the church. I was going actively, but when I initially handed my temple recommend back, at that point, a few weeks after that, I got disfellowshipped, and I've been disfellowshipped ever since then. And that's been that's worked out pretty well, because that way, if I move wards or if a new leadership comes in, they kind of know where I am at. But I have gone back to church in many different situations. I was active in a singles ward when I was in college. Then when I lived in New York, they had a great branch that was a young single adult branch. And I was, as an out gay person there, welcomed to come to the ward. Got to know the branch president really well. He became a great friend. I actually reactivated one of my friends who had left the church, and she was living in New York. I said, you got to come out to this branch with me. Like, this is awesome. And she started coming back to the branch, and now she's back all the way in church.
Doing missionary work, even.
Yeah,
even
she's like all, but she lived in New York, so she's not, your typical Utah Mormon. She's definitely is more on the liberal side of things as far as how she views it.
So were you able to hold a calling or anything like that as an out gay?
No. At that point, I had already been disfellowshipped, and it worked really well for me, because I was kind of ready to not have a calling in the church. Anyone who knows LDS folks, they work a lot in the church.
All right, Blamers, that's another shot of truth with no chaser. If you made it this far, I love you for it. If you're offended, it's probably because it hit home. Make sure you hit follow so you don't miss the next episode. Share this one with your friends, your ex, your therapist, whoever needs to hear it, and tag me at Blame It on Mel so I can see who's taking the blame with me. Until next time, keep it real, keep it raw, and if all else fails, just blame Mel.